Alright, so today we got a little combination video for the SWPPP, and this video is going to contain sections 4, 5, and 6. The reason for this combination is as you get further down the document, the information becomes a little bit less dense, so it really wouldn't make much sense to have these sections in their own respective videos. So let's just jump into section 4, which is selecting post-construction BMPs. The purpose of this section is basically to identify all best management practices that are going to be put in place to stop water pollution from happening after you leave the site. And these post-construction best management practices could be a variety of things. They could be biofilters, detention and retention devices, earth dikes, infiltration basins, porous pavement, outlet protection or velocity dissipation devices, which is basically something that stops water from leaving the site too fast so it doesn't cause excessive erosion. And another one that's related to that is slope protection and vegetated strips or swales, which also stop erosion. A lot of this is not just based around pollution causing damage, it's also velocity of water can cause a lot of environmental damage because if it's coming out of the site very fast, you're going to end up disrupting the natural order of whatever stream it ends up going into. That's why you need that velocity protection. That about wraps up section 4, so we're going to be moving on to section 5, part 1, which is inspection. So the purpose of this part is to identify all individuals responsible for conducting inspections and describe why they're qualified to inspect that equipment. Also, you're going to be describing the frequency of when inspections will occur. This doesn't just have to be on a month-to-month basis or like based on time like that. It could be based on if there's like a storm, then you would go inspect, or it can be based on other things like that that exist outside of that chronological order. And you're also going to be documenting all repairs and maintenance that you undertake with your inspections, and that should actually be included in sections 2 and 3, the finer details of what is repaired and the maintenance that you undertake. Moving on to section 5, part 2, we have delegation of authority. The purpose of this is to identify all individuals and the positions that they're in where the construction site operator has delegated authority to them. This could be just for signing inspection reports, certifications, and other information like that, where you can't have one person doing all of this. It would just be too much work. So you have to delegate authority there. And in this document, you will be including the company organization name, the individual who's in that position, the position that they're in, their address, the city address, and then the telephone number of them and personal contact info of the person who authority has been delegated to. Moving on to section 5, part 3, we have our corrective action log. Now this is very similar to part 1 of section 5, where you'll basically be listing repairs or corrective actions that you took as a result of maintenance on certain BMPs and stuff like that. Although the difference here is that they're actually asking that you attach an official document there rather than just filling out the paper that they have provided. So you actually have to attach a real document there that you made. Okay, moving on to section 6, we have record keeping and training. Part 1 is record keeping. This is really just going to be a compilation of a lot of official documents you need to do construction and fill out the SWPPP anyway. It's sort of just double checking, make sure you have those. So you'll need a copy of the construction permit, that'll have to be attached. You also need to attach a signed and certified NOI form or permit application form, and then also a copy of a letter from the EPA or state notifying that they have a receipt of your complete NOI application. And on top of all that, you also need to attach inspection reports and records relating to endangered species and historic preservation. So this hasn't been really talked about since section 1, but it's pretty important to have a record of existing endangered species and historic laws because it can kind of differ on a state-to-state basis. Moving on to part 2 of section 6, we have log changes to the SWPPP. Now here again, you're going to be attaching a document that you've compiled a bunch of information on. This document is going to include basically a log of all changes or updates that happened to the SWPPP while you were conducting construction. This could include additions of like new BMPs or kind of replacements of failed BMPs, significant changes or their timing on the project, or changes in personnel, changes in inspection and maintenance procedures, updates to the site map, really just at that point, etc. It's going to contain all changes that you ever made to the SWPPP since you started construction. And finally, moving on to part 3 of section 6, We have training. So training your staff and subcontractors is actually technically a best management practice because you're managing them. And you're going to be describing how that training went, how you prevent stormwater pollution, just among staff and like the activities that they do. And you're also going to include the dates of training, the number of attendees, the subject covered, and the length of that training session.